And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a game called Richard the Lionheart. Now, Richard the Lionheart was a game that I initially played back at the CMON-Con. It was not completely done there, but it was pretty close to being finished. I really enjoyed it, and so I was glad to get the final product and give it a try to see what changed. And the answer is not really much from when I played it then. But this is a game in which takes place during the whole time frame of Robin Hood. It's called Richard the Lionheart because he's kind of the focal point of victory points in this game. But you are playing one of Robin Hood and his merry men, or you're playing the Sheriff of Nottingham, Prince John, or maybe someone who's just kind of neutral in the whole situation. It's an interesting game. I don't think I've seen anything like this at all. Here's how. As you can see, there is a lot of components in this game. Players are going to be choosing characters at the beginning of the game. The players are going to be split up into people who support Prince John and the people who support Richard the Lionheart. And so Friar Tuck, for example, is one of the good guys. Then if there is an odd number of players, 3 or 5 players, then one person will be one of the neutral characters. So you're going to go through and pick the different characters. The green ones support John, and the red ones, basically Robin Hood's folks. And then, of course, there's neutral people. So when you pick your person at the beginning of the game, you're going to have a special ability. You're going to have a starting number of coins. So Maid Marian starts with 4 coins. And then you have some spots to put various things, and I'll talk about those in a moment. You're also going to this is Friar Tuck. You're going to take the piece that matches you, put it in front of you, and everyone's going to get a handful of influence cards. And now there are 6 different types of influence cards. You can see them over there. Those are piles face up. There's also an influence deck that's made up of 15 of each card shuffled down at the beginning of the game. And so you have these different influence cards which are available for players over the course of the game, and that's basically how the whole game operates. So in each round of the game, the first thing that's going to happen is players are going to draw an event. Now this event does not happen until the end of the round, but it kind of gives you an idea of what's going to happen. So at the end of the round, each player can discard 2 faction cards to gain 2 points, or 4 to get 4 points. Or if the King's Return track went down this round, decrease it an extra space, and so on and so forth. This also tells you where these 2 gentlemen are going to go. You have the merchant and the mercenary, and they might show up at different numbered locations on the board. Now on a player's turn, it's pretty simple. On the first time, you just put them on any location and do that action. After that, you can move them 3 spaces on the board following the roads. So 1, 2, 3. You have to go to a spot that is unoccupied, and when you go to a spot, you simply do what that spot says. So here, for example, at Oxford, I can discard a red or a green card and get 4 coins. Now, it has to be the card of my type. If I go to Cambridge, I get 2 coins and a card of my choice. If I go to Grimsby, which can only be taken by people, because you see the background here is green, this can only be taken by people who support Prince John. I can pay a coin to get a victory point and a card. Over at York, I can take either a red card and a face-down card, a random card from the deck, and a coin, or I can take, these are very specific cards. Over at Chester, I can turn in 2 red flag cards and get 1 of every green card, a random card, and a victory point. So really, you're trying to figure out what are the best actions to take. If you take an action where the merchant is, you get 2 coins. If you take an action where the mercenary is, you draw 2 cards. So everyone's going to get 1 action. Then, after that, after everyone has taken their action, each player is required to put 2 cards into the Crusade deck. Now, at the beginning of the game, the Crusade deck is going to start with just 1 card from each. But everyone's going to be adding cards to it. You have to add 2 cards. If you don't, you'll lose points for the cards you don't add. So let's say people throw in several cards that they have here into this deck. You'll then shuffle the deck, and you're going to draw cards depending on the number of players. So let's say it's a 4-player game. We would draw 8 cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're then going to look at these cards, and it's going to affect the different tracks here. Now, these tracks are really important. This is the whole point of the game. There are 2 tracks at the top, which are showing the battle that's going on. We have Richard's army and Saladin's army, okay? And then we have the King's Return down here and the King's Treasure. So this is Richard coming back to England, and this is the king's treasure, trying not to get it stolen. So we'll take a look at the top first. We look at the army. And so we're looking to see which side had more army cards drawn. And the only one that we had is 1 for Saladin. If they're the same, nothing happens. Otherwise, there was 1 red card, there was none, and so Saladin's army moves forward 1 on this track. Actually, that was Richard's army. I don't know why I said it was Saladin's army. Richard's army moves forward 1 because it was 1 red card and no green cards. Pretty simple. Whichever side has more cards, you subtract the other side, and that's how far your token moves. On the king's return, this is trying to get King Richard back to England. Here there were 3 king's returns of the green, stopping him, making him tired, and there were no red ones. So it says if there's green is more than red, nothing happens. If they're the same, it moves forward 1, and if it's less, it moves forward 2. So it doesn't move at all. The king doesn't return at all this round. And then the king's treasure. So we look here, and we have 3 reds and 1 green. Are reds greater than green? Yes, then nothing happens. If they were the same, it moves forward 1. And if there were more greens than red, it would move forward 2. So these markers did not move very far this round. But every round, they're going to possibly move forward, which will end the game if one of them reaches the end. After everyone has done that, you then are going to be able to buy stuff based on whatever round it is going to be the cost. So in round 1, I could buy a horse for 3 coins, a boat for 3 coins, a shield for 3 coins. I could buy a card of my choice for 3 coins, a random card for 1, and a victory point for 1. And you'll notice that the prices go down and up as time goes by. Victory points get more expensive, and ships and things get less expensive. When you buy these, you're going to place them on your board. So if, for example, Maid Marian buys a horse, I put a horse here. A horse lets you move 4 spots on your turn rather than 3. A ship lets you use the boat passageways when you're moving. If you get a shield, you now get a special ability, which says when you resolve an action on a red location, and each of the locations is red or green, you can draw and discard a card. Or if you're the green player, you'd get the green one. And if you buy cards, obviously they're going to be added to your hand. If you buy points, you're just going to keep those for the end of the game. The end of the game is going to happen when one of these reaches 10. Or if you go through a certain number of rounds and none has reached 10, at that point, whoever has most victory points wins. And whoever's playing a neutral player, if there is one, gets an extra 3 victory points. And they're probably going to win, the neutral player. Otherwise, either the people supporting Prince John are going to win, or the people supporting Richard are going to win. And it all depends which track, which if the king returns and gets here, then the players who have the red characters, they're going to win. And if the king's treasure gets here, then the players with the green characters are going to win. But only one of them wins, and that's the one with the most victory points. Now, you're going to be collecting victory points throughout the game, but also each player will start the game with an edict. And these are just basically extra ways. So if Richard army reaches 10, and this person gets an extra 5 victory points. Or here they get 1 extra victory point, prestige point for every Richard's banner in their hand. And the blue points basically just get points as long as they're only going to win if none of the tracks gets a 10. So they're trying to do that, and then they get points depending on where this stuff is on the different tracks. So that's it. Even though the teams win against each other, there actually is only one final victor. Okay, so talking about the components, the board itself has that ye old England look to it as we look at the different things on the board. I'm not a huge fan of this, but it works okay. The iconography here isn't too bad. You're looking, it will show you a shield and a background if your special ability works there, but also it's pretty simple, hey, get 2 coins and a card, red or green. Here, change in a card and get of your type and get a victory point and 3 points or whatever. So, I mean, the things are different, and you can look it up in the rules if you're not quite sure what anything does. The board is a little busy when you look at the whole thing, but, it's functional. It's just that you're going to have to look at it for a while to figure out where you can move to and what abilities you can take. The minis are spectacular. They're a cool mini, and not, of course, and they make great stuff. I honestly think that the Little John figure is the best of the lot. You don't even need these, There's some of them are just moving on the tracks, the gray ones. But still, they're neat to have, and they give an extra level to the game. Character art isn't bad, and these sheets themselves are pretty useful, right? You have the horse, you have the boat, you have the special ability, you keep your money here. That's, it just works pretty well. The cards themselves are, again, it's that old artwork type thing, but they work for this game, and the card quality is fine, as is the tokens. The only complaint I would have about these is the victory point tokens. I think there's 5s and 10s of them. It's not the easiest thing to see. You can see the black and the blue ones look very similar. That would be pretty much the only component complaint I would really have. Now, the theme of the game is a cool theme, right? I like the idea of, hey, we're trying to keep Richard from getting back to England, or we're helping his army or not, sending support, whatever. That works fine. The artwork and all that kind of molds together, even though, like I said, I'm not a big fan of that old, not very good artwork, honestly. But it does make the theme of the game give that medieval feel to it. The only part where the theme breaks down is the fact that there's one winner. Now, I completely get that Prince John and the Archbishop are going to be back fighting each other, right? And Sheriff of Nottingham, I get that. I don't get that Robin Hood and Little John would be doing that. That Robin Hood would be like, get out of my way. Little John, I'm the winner of this. That doesn't make any sense. It works game-wise. And in the game-wise, this is actually one of the games where that semi-cooperative thing works really well, because you are trying to get the most victory points, but you also want your side to win, because if your side loses, it doesn't matter how many victory points you have. So there are times where you're going to not throw the cards in that you probably should into the mix, because you'd rather just win the game. So that's interesting, and I actually think the game plays best when there is a odd number of players and there's that neutral person there, because they're also trying to manipulate it back and forth to make sure neither side wins. The card play itself, you might say, well, it seems very random. You draw the cards. Yeah, but it's that same card deck. So if I throw some green cards in there and they don't come out this round, they'll probably come out next round. It's essentially a card cube tower, like the Wallenstein games. And so that kind of works well. You're trying to put more cards in there. Sometimes you're forced to put in cards of another color, or you don't have the cards, in which case you lose victory points. And that kind of works well. The game is a worker placement game. I call it worker movement, because you're moving your worker on the board. And once you have the horse and the boat, you can pretty much go anywhere unless someone else is already there. The more players in the game, the more tight the game feels, because there's fewer places you can go to. And so you'll think, I'm going to go to this spot. Someone moves there before you. And you're like, all right, fine. Now I got to figure out which one of these remaining spots is the best one. The purchasing at the end of a round, I like that a lot. Do you want the boat? Do you want the horse? They give you a lot more freedom, but you're spending coins to get those. Maybe you should just buy cards and victory points. It's a good concept. That all works well. The whole game does not gel as well as I'd like it to. I think the game is fine, but again, it's one of those ones that's fine, but not great. Why is it not great? Because the ending can be a little wonky. Sometimes, you are depending on that person who's with you, and if they kind of throw the game, not necessarily throwing the game, but they're trying to win individually and it hurts you as a team, that can be problematic. So you're kind of depending on the people that you're working with to make sure that the game ends for your side, but at the same time, only one person can win. And so again, even though I said this works pretty well for semi-co-op, it still has those inherent problems in it where one person can kind of ruin it for somebody else. But the components are fantastic, especially the miniatures. And even though the board is a little busy and you're trying to figure out what to do, again, like I said, I want to approve this simply on basis of the fact that it's different. I've never had a game where you put cards in the deck and then we draw them and there are 4 different tracks that move and everyone's trying to control those tracks and you have your edict and things like that. I find that whole thing fascinating, and again, it kind of works thematically, and the game isn't even that long. It's just 10 rounds, and after that, someone's going to win. So definitely one to try before you buy, I think. Not everyone is going to like this game. It's not everyone's style. I thought it was good. Again, a lot of what I like about it is the innovativeness of the game in general. But at the same time, there is some interesting plays here. And I think it's best played with an odd number to keep that neutral character in the mix. But it's up to you. You check it out. That's called Richard the Lionheart. Dice Tower Judgment approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.
Shut the door.